Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. So today we'll be addressing a very common question. What is the difference between a measure and a calculated column, and when to use each of these in Power BI using some examples. Let's first understand what a measure and a calculated column is. Measure is used to calculate aggregate functions such as sum or average of a column. It is calculated in either report or in a DAX query, which means that they are not stored in your database. Hence, they are generally faster. Whereas a calculated column is computed at row level within the table it belongs to. That is, it physically exists in your data model. So when you open the Power Query, you'll be able to see that column sitting in your data set. Hence, it occupies a lot of space in data set. So let's understand it with help of some examples and see how these works and how to make a wise choice. So here I have my data set, name data, as you can see on the right hand side. The simple rule for creating a measure is, if you want to see any value on your screen, that is in your report or published outputs, then you should think of a measure. For example, if we want to find out the total units sold, and just see, we have a column for units and we have price per unit, customers, and so on. We can just make a column chart. Say I drag a column chart and drag region under axis and units in values. Observe, we haven't created any measure as yet, but Power Pivot will create an implicit measure at the backend to provide the sum of total units, and that too by region we have done. So either if you're creating or not, the measure is being made available. So let's now actually make a measure, and there are plenty of ways to do so. One of which is just right clicking here on the data name and choosing new measure. Other would be going to the data view and right clicking here and choosing a new measure, or under table tools you'll find an option for new measure. Even in home tab you'll find an option for new measure. So let's just do it here. Right click, new measure. So you'll find it here on the top. Say we name it as total units measure, just for our reference or understanding. We'll call it as measure, which will be nothing but sum of, we want a total, right? So sum of, choose the column, sum of units we want, right? Okay, so if we go to our data set, see we have taken a new measure, but see if it is not seen in the data set. Whereas if you go here in the report view, you will see that it is here on the right hand side and with an icon that it is a new measure. So its existence is seen in the report view, not in the data view. Now let's create a separate column chart using this new measure. So let's take a column chart. And drag in the region, and now drag in the new measure. Let's just put the data labels here and even here. See, it is giving us the exactly same output. So anything shown on the screen is more or less coming from the measure, whether it is an implicit or explicit measure, right? Now, what about the columns? Would you create? Why would you create a column if you want to see that as a physical column in the backend table? So, when would you need such a column? See here, we have units as well as a column for price per unit. And if we want to know the money generated, so it will be nothing but units multiplied by the price. So if we want to see the total sales against each value on the table, then we would create a column. So each entry for each transaction, if you need the sales, then you would choose to create a new column. So either choose from new column from the table tools here, new column, or again right click and say new column. So we'll call it as say sales, and as it is a column, we'll just for our understanding say sales column equal to data. So what we want is units multiplied by the price per unit, that is this. So it will basically do the multiplication for each row and actually display it in your data model. Unlike measures, measures was not displayed in this data set. Now it can also be used as a part of our output. Let's create another column chart using this calculated column. So I'll just make them small. So let's create a chart here. So we'll drag in the region, and if you observe, the calculated column is seen like this. You'll see a column, calculated column icon here. We'll drag this here, and if you put the data labels, so here we have the column chart. So that is when you will use a column chart, calculated column. And so our next question is, what happens when if we can use either a column or a measure to get the same results? What will be the wise choice then? Now let's try to create a measure. So let's try to create a measure. Let's call it as sales measure. Here we will use the iterator function x, that is sum x. Basically what it will do, for each transaction it will multiply the units and price per unit, and at end it will be summing all those. So sum x we'll choose, it needs the data set name, the table name, so which is data. Our table name is data. Then we'll choose data units multiplied by data price per unit. It appears on the right hand side. We called it as sales measure. Now let's create a column chart to see what numbers it is giving. So if we take a column chart, again let's drag the region and the sales measure, and let's give the data labels here. See, it yields exactly the same figures as sales column. See, these two are exactly same. So in short, there was no need of making an entire column for calculating sales for each transactions, right? This would have reduced the space in data file. So more the number of columns, heavier your PBX file would be, your Power BI file would be. So let's sum it up. Hope now you can make a wise choice between measures and columns.